So let's start with the two significant injuries are your ACL. You had ACL reconstructions on both your left and your right knees. So if you could briefly explain how that happened, what the process was like, and then for the second ACL, your left knee, that's where you rehabbed with us at Pro, and we got to really kind of get you back to everything that you love to do, coaching and playing volleyball and all of that. So let's go into how did your ACL injuries happen and what was that experience like?
Well, when I look back on it, because I have footage of when I tore both my ACLs, it looks like I didn't do anything. It looks like I just fell. And that's where a lot of people have the misconception where, you know, something dramatic needs to happen to be able to tear your ACL. For my first one that happened my junior year, it was at Xavier. We were in the third set. And mind you, this game was really crazy already. Lots of taunting from the other team and just a lot of heckling as well. So it was already a heated game. All I remember is before the incident happened, I was transitioning to defense and the ball went off the block and I was going to my right still. And the ball went off the block and I tried to change the directions to go forward. And that's where I just heard and I just fell down. And I just felt this excruciating pain in my knee. And I didn't understand why. And after a week or so, we eventually got the MRI. And I didn't really think anything of it because this is my first injury ever. I've never, really sprained anything. I never did anything to my ankles. I never, I just had to tape something up, but no injuries ever. And so this was a complete different feeling for me, seeing that my knee was completely swollen, how I couldn't walk and everything like that. But after a couple of weeks, it was back to normal. And so when we finally did the MRI, they showed it to me and I couldn't read it. And that's when I found out that I tore my ACL for the first time. And I was just in complete shock. I was emotional. I was just completely mentally drained because I didn't think anything of it. I was like, this can't happen to me. I'm healthy. Like, there's no reason why. And so after discussing with the doctors, that's when we kind of figured out why it happened, because up until that game in college, I've played every single game, every single set, almost every single point, except when the libero has to go out. But other than that, switching from liberos to setter to hitter, I played every single game and every single point. And when I came home, I competed. I played in tournaments. I, went to the beach and played beach volleyball. I went to open gym. And so I never gave my body rest up until that point. And during that game, I knew that I was tired. And so that's where I knew that I needed to know what my body is capable of and how important rest is and rehab is. And so after, coming back home and getting the surgery with Dr. Khan and doing rehab with you, and that's where I met you guys for the first time, that's where I was like, okay, this is going to be a different journey for me. And it was very mentally draining, emotionally draining, physically draining, every type of, feeling that you could have towards the sport, and just feeling completely defeated. I just felt like, how am I going to come back from this? And, I hear people are saying, you're going to come back like Adrian Peterson, how he came back from an ACL injury and he came back and he was better than what he was. And, having a really big support system really helped me. Having my friends and family, my family in New York, just give me that encouragement that I needed to say, okay, this is what happened, but this isn't the end of you. You still have your senior year to compete. And that's what kept me have that fire burning inside, where it's like, I just got to do one more season. Like, I have to go out with a bang. And it was until I think a month or two before my preseason where I was finally cleared by the doctors. And I was good to go for preseason. I was like, okay, I'm going to make this senior year my best season. because I had this ACL injury. And I only had one game last season that I didn't play. And that was the game after I tore my ACL. And so I was like, okay, this is going to happen. This is going to be great. And so in preseason, we weren't doing so well. And so we had a late night practice. And I went for this one ball because our coach was, don't let the ball touch the ground or we're going to do sprints. And so the ball dropped. So I went to go dive for it and show effort. And I broke my pinky. And so it was a devastating injury. And I think that was out of the two ACL injuries, I think breaking my pinky was probably the worst, because I just got cleared, I think it was like 6 weeks ago, and from my ACL injury, and I completely broke my pinky right across, where it almost broke through the skin. And I needed to get 2 pins here to keep them to heal properly. And so after recovering from my ACL and breaking my pinky, I was out for 6 weeks in my senior year. Mm-hmm. And so during that time period, I'd say that was like my darkest hour, because I did all of that hard work and put all that effort to get back to my senior year to compete. And that was set back again. And it was just because of a freak accident. And so I was just like, questioning everything. I was like, why am I here? Like, why am I competing? Like, why am I putting my body through this? And, I had to take a lot of time to myself to figure out, is this something that I want to continue? Do I want to finish off my senior year? Mm-hmm. And once I hit the 4-week mark, my team was doing well, actually. And this is without me. And so I was like, is it even worth going back? Should I even go back? Should I just, ride the bench for the rest of my senior year and just leave it like that? And, everyone was just telling me what they should be telling me. And I wasn't listening. But it wasn't until one day where I was just like, I can't go out like this. I want to leave somewhat of a legacy behind, saying, like, look at what all I've done since this injury, all the records that I was trying to break, all the honorable mentions I was getting, how I was, the 1 or 2 libero in the conference. Like, I have to do this for myself, because if I look back on this and not finish, I knew I was going to regret it. And so after the 6-week mark, when I was cleared to go, I was like, I'm going to play. And that's when I was shocked to hear that I was going to be a setter for the rest of the season, because I broke my pinky. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, because that's not the setting part that scared me. It was the blocking part. And so I had to learn how to overcome my fear of blocking. And my first game that I played in, right off the back, it was at home, and I didn't play the first set or so, and they weren't doing well. And my coach was like, Jojo just pointed at me and was like, let's go. And I wasn't even warm. I was like, okay, like, I'm not going to play this game. This is my first game back. Like, I'm just on the court. And I ended up doing really well. And this is just being a DS, so a defensive specialist. And the next game we played DePaul, and I ended up being a setter for that. And so I had to retrain everything and just be mentally strong to be able to compete that game. And we ended up winning. So it was just a wild craziness journey with those 2 injuries itself.